You're listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Sports Radio Detroit is proud to present, in association with Detroit Sports Media, the Whip and Neigh podcast on sportsradiodetroit.com, SRD, with your show host, Pete Spivak of Detroit's 1130 WDFN, The Fan. So I do like Enticed at 7 to 2 on the morning line, especially with the jockey change of Junior Alvarado.
It will be Enticed, sharp in victory, and wrapped up by Junior Alvarado as they stroll home in the Gotham.
Ryan Dickey of Firehouse Racing Stables.
And the reason that I like the number 11 Runaway Ghost is because of that. He's going to be the speed.
What a local support has come to fruition. What a win. Runaway Ghost has done it.
And Dana Garuder of Baseball America, who's also a professional racing handicapper.
That's the way I see it. I see two favorites, two of the favorites with Magnum Moon and Salamini. I think they'll run 1-2.
It is Magnum Moon, undefeated and a Rebel winner. Magnum Moon blew him away, beat him by 3. Salamini second.
And now it's time for the Whip and Neigh podcast. Here are your hosts, Pete Spivak, Ryan Dickey, and Dana Garuder. Oh, yeah, a little self-promotion opener. Welcome in to another episode of the Whip and Neigh podcast here on sportsradiodetroit.com. I am one of your show hosts. I am Pete Spivak, and with me as usual, Ryan Dickey and Dana Garuder. Welcome in, gentlemen.
Hey, I'm ready to go, Harry. Let's
well, I
get
know you
to
guys
it.
are. Absolutely, man. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
So far, so good. Ready to rock and roll.
All right. Well, am I. I'm ready to rock and roll with you boys. And what we do here on the Whip and Neigh podcast is we break down the prep race schedule, which leads to the Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday of May. We have the American, European, and Japanese horses, which compete for 20 gates at the Kentucky Derby by racing at a prep race schedule from September through April. And all prep races award points to the top 4 finishers, and the top 20 horses with the most points will earn a gate at the Kentucky Derby. 18 American horses, 1 spot to the Japanese champ, and 1 spot to the European champ. Also, the Derby will now make sure to supply at least 4 also eligibles as a just in case. And so that is what we do here. And usually what we do here around about this time is break down the top 20 rundown. But, a little bit, I am actually a little bit unprepared today. Believe it or not, gentlemen. I forgot to actually break out the top 20. Ryan, do you have the top 20 in front of you, my friend?
I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up when you're down here, guy.
Well, then you do it, my friend. Jump onto that top 20 rundown.
All right. First of all, we got a horse that's already in the Kentucky Derby. That's number 1, Noble Indy, the winner of the Louisiana Derby. He's got 110 points. At number 2 is Bolt Doro. 3 is Enticed. 4, Bravazzo. 5, Promises Fulfilled, who we'll see race here this Saturday at the Florida Derby. Number 6, Magnum Moon. Number 7, Runaway Ghost, who won the Sunland Derby last week. Number 8 is Quip. Number 9 is Lone Sailor. Number 10 is Mackenzie. Number 11 is Good Magic. Number 12, Salamini. Number 13, My Boy Jack. Number 14, Flame Away, who is not Triple Crown nominated at this time, so if he happens to get enough points to get into the Kentucky Derby, his connections are going to have to pony up a lot of money to get him in. Number 15, Firenze Fire. Number 16, Free Drop Billy. Number 17, Snapper Sinclair. Number 18, Combatant, and that's where the line would be drawn right now if you take the European and the Japanese horse. And then we have 19, Blended Citizen, and number 20, Strike Power, who drew the rail in the Florida Derby.
Well, very good. There it is, the top 20 rundown as the Derby standings currently stand by Ryan Dickey over there. And now we're going to head over to Dana Garuder because Dana, he loves to talk about what happened in the previous week. He is sort of our review guy. And Dana, you got to break down the 2 races that we had last week, which was if I have my schedule in front of me, because I know what it was. Just hang on a second. It was the Louisiana Derby and the Sunland Derby. If you could review those for our audience, my friend.
Okay, well, we'll start with the Louisiana Derby, which was last Saturday. Noble Indy was the winner. Todd Pletcher horse, who added blinkers for that race, stalked the pace, and hung on very gamely in the stretch when he was challenged by the stretch runner, the lone sailor, who was a long shot in that race. He was a 9-1 shot, and he almost won the race. It was a head-bobbing finish at the end. And then My Boy Jack was your third-place finisher. There were a couple of horses in there who were disappointments, notably Bravazzo, who didn't really run at all in that race and was very disappointing, but apparently will still run in the Kentucky Derby. So Noble Indy's got his points. And then we went to the Sunland Derby on Sunday, and Runaway Ghost, a horse that all three of us liked, a local horse there, ended up winning that race by a pretty convincing margin. He changed tactics in that race. He was usually goes right to the front or battles for the lead. This time he kind of laid off and stayed on the outside and pounced right around the turn and pulled away for the victory. So he picked up 50 very valuable points in that race, and he should be running in the Kentucky Derby as well. And that was it for last weekend. We had two prep races, and we have two big ones this weekend.
Very good there, Dana. Thank you very much for that. And before we get to those two big prep races coming up this weekend, I would like to remind everyone to log on to sportsradiodetroit.com and check out the 2018 edition of Detroit's favorite female personality. I believe they are in the second round right now. Yes, we are in the second round right now. And, again, last year's winner was Jackie Page. You got a very interesting second round coming up, but make sure you check out the four brackets, the Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, and Washtenaw brackets. Again, the second round has been posted, and cast your vote for your favorite, Detroit's favorite female personality on sportsradiodetroit.com. And so back here to the Whip and Neigh podcast, we will get to those two big prep races coming up this weekend that Dana just mentioned, and we're going to head overseas around the world. To start off the first one, it's going to be the Grade 2 mile and 3/16, $2 million UAE Derby from Meydan Racecourse in the United Arab Emirates. This will be race 4 on the card. Points awarded on the road to the Kentucky Derby: 100 for the win, 40 for second, 20 for third, and 10 for fourth. A field of 9 horses. And I did forget to check on the post time. I know it's like morning time for us. Do you guys have that information of what time the post time should be?
Usually that particular race goes off around noon or 1 o'clock Eastern time. I'll see if I can get an exact.
It's 9:30.
It is 9:30. I thought so. Thank you, Ryan. I wasn't sure on that. So it would be 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, and the weather is going to be hot, muggy, and it's, the United Arab Emirates. So here we go. The one horse is going to be Rhea. Actually, you know what? Yes, I am doing this all wrong because I'm a little bit out of sorts today. For those of you listening to our podcast, I did not work today. I had a couple other podcasts which I was doing, so I'm out of sorts. So we're going to start with the Grade 2 mile and 3/16, the UAE Derby, and I'll toss it over to Ryan, my good friend.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. This race probably going to be won by the favorites. The number 5 horse, Gold Town, looked great on this race course 2 times in a row here. He won the trial for the 2,000 guineas at Meydan, and then he won the actual race, the Group 3 2,000 guineas. He has gone a mile on this track. Now he's going to boost up a little bit in distance, but the way that he won these 2 races, he won them in outstanding fashion. He blew away his competition. Now he's going to face a little stiffer competition here in this race, but I don't think there's anyone beating this 5, Gold Town. He's 6-5 on your morning line for your North American betting. I didn't really look and see what it was like overseas, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of money anywhere on Gold Town. I think he's the obvious winner. As far as who comes in second and third, I like the filly. There's a filly running in this race. She's the number 1. Her name is Rhea, like you'd mentioned, and she's got some speed. She's also run here exclusively in her career. This is going to be her 5th start. All 5 have been here. She won last out against the girls in the UAE Oaks, but I think that she fits in this race very well. There's a good possibility that she finishes 1st or 2nd in this race and gets enough points to be pointed towards the Kentucky Derby. Now, this is her last race overseas. She's going to go to Bob Baffert after this. Now, she also has points in the Kentucky Oaks, so she's already eligible to be able to run in the Kentucky Oaks. I think she runs a real good race here, and at 10-1, she represents some value. The number 4 horse, Mendelssohn, the last time we saw him here on this side of the planet, he finished 1st. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and that was at a mile on the turf. He has yet to run on the dirt, so this will be his first try on the dirt. I like him a little bit. I think he should hit the board, but I don't think he's going to be your winner. So for me, in the UAE Derby, I'm going to go with the number 5, Goldtown, the number 1, Rhea, and then the number 4, Mendelssohn, to round out your top 3. And we'll take it over to Dana.
All right. Well, I do think that the top 3 or 4 horses in this race are better than we've seen in any UAE Derby in the past. There's some quality horses in here. I, too, like Goldtown, but I don't like him on top. Obviously, he's being touted very heavily overseas because you don't put 6-5 odds on somebody unless you really think this horse is a star. And he did pull away to a very impressive victory at a mile at Meydan in his last race. But I like Mendelssohn on top. Mendelssohn, he obviously has been running on the turf last year. He had a prep race, or kind of like a tune-up, on a synthetic track back in Ireland. But this horse is really bred for the dirt. His dam, Leslie's Lady, is also the dam of Beholder, who was one of the great fillies in the last 10 years in North America and raced exclusively on dirt. So this horse is really bred to run big on dirt. And I think that Aidan O'Brien has been dying to have a Derby starter and have a Derby winner. He's probably the most successful trainer overseas, and he's been looking to conquer the U.S. with a 3-year-old, and this might be the horse. I really like Mendelssohn in this race. Definitely scared of Goldtown. And in my 3rd spot, I'll have to go with the horse who shipped over there, Reride. We saw him win the Mine That Bird Derby on Sunland Park and beating Runaway Ghost in that race. And obviously, Runaway Ghost came back and won the Sunland Derby, so obviously it was a quality win for Reride. And normally, he would be the favorite in a race like this, but he just ran into 2 buzzsaws, I believe, here in Mendelssohn and Goldtown. So I like Mendelssohn on top, Goldtown 2nd, and Reride 3rd.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I tell you what, there's one horse that you guys did not talk about. That would be the 7 Yulong Warrior. Now, Yulong Warrior is going to be speed up front. Yulong Warrior has also raced the distance, which is usually the Preakness distance of a mile and 3/16. That's what the UAE Derby will be. Yulong Warrior won his last race out at a mile and 3/16 from Meydan, by the way. He won it by 11.5 lengths. Now, obviously, he was not up against quality competition, but he just schooled everybody. Now, he's obviously moving up in class big time for his race, but they really think that Yulong Warrior is going to be a threat to possibly make the Derby field because this will be his one and only shot. I'm taking a look at one of my favorite stats, who needs points. Mendelssohn definitely needs points on the road to the Kentucky Derby. I've already seen how that stat has worked out in how I've been betting lately, especially in the last couple of races with the Sunland winner and with the Louisiana Derby winner. I think that Mendelssohn definitely needs points because Gronkowski, another horse on the European Trail, is also at 20 points. I think that, Dana, you're right on. I think Mendelssohn should be the winner of this race because he definitely needs the 100 points. Even the 40 would help him, but definitely 100 would get him in. Goldtown is an extremely good horse. The one thing I like to do might help out some of our listeners. When it comes to these European horses, I love to go on YouTube and actually watch the races that they've run. And I really like how Goldtown looked in his last race, pulling away like he did for the win. But this Yulong Warrior is a definite warrior, the number 7 horse. I think that the 4 Mendelssohn needs to be wary of trying to catch Yulong Warrior at the end. It's not going to be that easy. I agree with you on Re-Ride because Javier Castellano, shipping over there to UAE, he actually should be riding Audible in the upcoming Florida Derby at Gulfstream Park. He's obviously going for money here because the UAE Derby is at $2 million, where the Florida Derby, which we're going to talk about next, is at $1 million. But Javier Castellano should be on Audible. That's where he belongs. I think that he would win if he was on Audible for the Florida Derby, but he's not. He's on Re-Ride. He wouldn't make that jockey change or that changeover unless he was definitely sure that he was going to, cross the finish line first at UAE. So I think the 3 Re-Ride definitely needs to be considered. So I like the combination of 3, 4, and 7 at the UAE Derby. And just to reiterate what Ryan said about Rhea, I do like Rhea as well. The only filly in the race, she definitely has the stats to win. She's also raced at 1 mile and 3/16, and where she won by 3 1/4 lengths with PJ Dobbs on the back. So I think that Rhea is definitely, I would go with 1, 3, 4, 7 in this race. The 5 Goldtown, he looks sexy. I watched his race, but his last race was his best race. So 1, 3, 4, 7 at the UAE Derby for me. Gentlemen, anything more to add?
Well, another comment about Yulong Warrior. This is just an aside. His owner is Yulong. And that's why they named him Yulong Warrior. And that the owner would not have named himself after the horse unless he was a good horse. That you don't name yourself after a $5,000 maiden claimer.
That's a really good point. I love how you look at the program there, Dana. That's true. Yeah, so this is like his this is his baby. This is his horse where he thinks he can do it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Another point, you mentioned Castellano. Well, he's also riding West Coast in the Dubai World Cup. So, and he's the favorite in that race. So, I think Castellano would have loved to have ridden Audible, but he wasn't going to pass up a $6 million race in which his horse was the favorite. So, I think it was just a matter of him just having to choose where the money was, and that's where the money was.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan, any final comments on the UAE?
No, but I'm saying if Audible picks up John Velasquez, that's not terrible. It's not a big loss.
No. I wasn't saying it was going to be a big loss. I just think that Javier and Audible seem to get along a little bit better. Velasquez was the Audible's maiden jockey, and then they switched over to Castellano.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, then that is it. Those are our picks for the UAE Derby from Meydan Racecourse at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Time on Saturday. Make sure you check that out on your local horse channel. I would mention horse channels, but if they don't sponsor us, I won't mention specific horse channels. So there you go.
Yeah.
So before we get to our next race, gentlemen, I would like to remind you gentlemen and our listeners to log on to sportsradiodetroit.com and check out the latest episode of the Out of Bounds podcast with Dave, Dan, and Jeff. The guys now have over 200 episodes. So take a listen and join in the conversation as they talk Detroit sports and a little pop culture as well. So very, very good show there, the Out of Bounds podcast with Dave, Dan, and Jeff. So back here to the Whip and Neigh podcast with Pete, Ryan, and Dana on sportsradiodetroit.com. And we are going to head down to a much warmer place than where we are currently sitting, and that would be the Grade 1 mile and an eighth, $1 million Express Bet Florida Derby from Gulfstream Park in Hallandale Beach, Florida. And this will be, race 10? I forgot to write down the race. Is it race
14.
10? 13.
14, 1-4.
1-4. Race 14 on the card. Points awarded on the road to the Kentucky Derby. 100 for the win, 40 for second, 20 for third, and 10 for fourth. A field of 9 horses. And I forgot to type down the post time. And post time is, gentlemen, anyone?
6:30 p.m.
Bueller at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you very much. Again, out of sorts today. I'm sorry to our listeners. Weather, I do at least have the weather for you. Partly sunny. Chance of showers, though. Slight chance. I think it's like 25, 30%. High 81 degrees. And so with that, we have 9 horses in the field. I'll toss it over to Ryan for the Florida Derby.
Okay, let's talk about the Florida Derby. We have to talk about the final prep for that, which was the Fountain of Youth, which was won by Promises Fulfilled. Promises Fulfilled got out front ahead of Strike Power, who's also in this race, who drew the rail. But the early fractions were slow, dawdling pace, and Strike Power didn't really put pressure on Promises Fulfilled. So you had a race that basically Promises Fulfilled got out front. Nobody really pressured him, and he had a chance to win. Not saying he's not a great horse, not saying that he didn't deserve the win, but I think this race is going to set up a little bit different. I think Strike Power on the rail is going to go out front and really, really put some pressure on Promises Fulfilled. So I do believe that this race will be completely different than the Fountain of Youth. Gulfstream Park on big race days like the Pegasus World Cup and like today, or not today, but on Saturday for the Florida Derby, their track always plays really fast. They really, really scrape that track and they make it as fast as they can. So you're going to see a fast early pace and somebody from mid-pack. We're not talking about a closer. We're talking about someone from mid-pack coming in and picking up the pieces of this race after the number 1 Strike Power and the number 4 Promises Fulfilled kind of reach their distance limit at that speed. So I think this sets up perfectly for number 6 Catholic Boy. I think Catholic Boy is showing the progression that you need for a 3-year-old to win a race such as the Florida Derby, to be a legitimate Kentucky Derby contender. He's got a nice late pace number for Equibase. If you look at Equibase past performances, he's got a nice late LP is what it's called. He should get this job done. He ran in the Sam Davis last. The Sam Davis, even though it didn't have very much of a quick pace, kind of like the Fountain of Youth, it really came back well. A lot of the runners in that Sam Davis have done well. So I like Catholic Boy on top to win the Florida Derby. The horse that I like to come in second is a huge long shot, and I think he's going to come in 15-1, even higher. That's the number 7 Hofberg. Now, the last time we saw Hofberg, he was at Gulfstream Park, and he won a maiden race. It was a $60,000 maiden race for trainer Bill Mott under Jose Ortiz, who he has again on this race. I think this horse is one of those late bloomers. He's not going to do well. He's not going to win the Kentucky Derby. He's probably not going to win the Florida Derby, but I think he has a real good shot of getting in the exotics and making some people happy who bet on him. So I like the 7 Hofberg to come in second. And then I have a Kentucky Derby future bet on Strike Power, the number 1 Strike Power. His trainer, Mark Hennig, said he's got to come in first or second in order for him to come in to the Kentucky Derby. I think he finishes 3rd in this race, and that really kind of puts him in a conundrum because it might get him in, it might not get him in. But I think Strike Power is going to get to the lead or very close to the lead with Promises Fulfilled, and I think he's going to hang on for just a piece, finish 3rd. So for me, I like 6 Catholic Boy, 7 Hofberg, and 1 Strike Power. And let's go to Dana.
Okay, well, I'm kind of hoping that the speed cancels each other out in this race. I'm not all that fearful of Strike Power, but I do believe that he's going to go to the front because he's on the rail. I don't think he has much choice but to send this horse. I think Promises Fulfilled might try to stalk him, which will be a first for that horse. He usually goes right to the front. But I just think the pace is going to be quick. And I like Audible. He ran a 29-4 finish at the mile and the 16th at Gulfstream Park. That's a real strong finish. And, Todd, this horse did not win a lot of Derby points by winning the Holy Bull. So he's got to finish first or second here. I really feel like this horse is cranked up and ready to go. And he was just dominant in that race. There were some horses there who were coming off layoffs and didn't run particularly well, but he dominated that field. He won by 5 lengths. So I'm going with Audible. I also like Catholic Boy. I think Catholic Boy is going to close here. He ran a pretty good race at Tampa Bay. There was not much speed in the race. Flameway got away with an easy lead, and Catholic Boy ended up finishing second in that race and really challenged him during the stretch run. But I think Catholic Boy's been training beautifully, and I really like him as the main threat to Audible. And as Ryan mentioned, Hofburg is an interesting long shot there. Billy Mott does not throw horses into stakes races unless he thinks he's got a shot. And this horse just coming off a maiden race, he ran the same day as Promises Fulfilled that was the same day. And Hofburg was wide the whole way in that race. He came from post 11. He was about 4 or 5 wide, and he moved up in what some thought was a attractive favored speed and took the lead. And then a horse came at him late in the stretch, and he held him off. It was a really impressive performance. Didn't run a big speed figure in the race, but I think he'll improve off that effort. So I'm going Audible on top, Catholic Boy second, Hofburg third, and I'll throw it over to Pete.
Well, thank you very much, Dana. Appreciate that. I, too, it is Easter weekend while this race is going to be run, and I would not be a good Catholic Boy if I did not choose the 6th Catholic Boy at 7-2 on the morning line. I do like what you boys mentioned about his stats. He did do well in the Grade 3 Sam F. Davis last time out, even though he did finish second to Flame Away. It was a very good race. Manny Franco on the back. I like the jockey change to Erod Ortiz Jr. I think that that's a perfect jockey change and a perfect jockey for this type of race at 1 1/8 from Gulfstream Park. Again, the 6th Catholic Boy at 7-2 is a very good pick. I do also like Audible at 9-5, the morning line favorite, the 8 horse. Again, with Mr. Velasquez jumping on the back, replacing Javier Castellano. I think that John Velasquez can get the job done with Audible. I think that Audible is definitely ready to win. He has the highest speed rating of all the horses in this field with a big fat 99 at the Grade 2 Holy Bull last time out, winning by 5.5 lengths. And he beat Free Drop Billy and Tiz Mischief. Now, again, going back to one of my favorite things, who needs points? I've already seemed to be doing pretty well with that the last 2 weekends that we've been choosing horses. I mean, we have all these stats in front of us, but I think it really comes down to who needs a win. And Catholic Boy definitely needs a win. Sitting at 25th right now in the top 20 standings with only 14 points. He needs a win or a second place to at least make the Derby. So Catholic Boy has to finish either 1-2. I think that that's definitely something that needs to be considered. I do like Strike Power as well. Luis Saez on the saddle for the 1 Strike Power. I think that Strike Power, even though he lost to Promises Fulfilled last time, I think that this race might set up better for him on the furthest inside position. Now, he won his maiden from the 1 hole with Luis Saez. Now, that was only a 5.5 furlong, but I think that he does well from the rail. And he also has a 102 speed rating in that maiden race. So actually, I said that the highest speed rating was Audible. It's actually 102 by Strike Power. So I think that Strike Power is going to be there, definitely at 4-1 on the morning line. So I definitely like the 1-6-8 combination. And I hate to sound like a broken record because, Hofburg definitely is looking very juicy there at 20-1 as a 7 horse. I do like Hofburg showing up on the board there. But we cannot forget Promises Fulfilled. I think Robbie Alvarado jumping on his back is interesting again. Helped him win his maiden, helped him win an allowance race. But only he did very well with those races at 6 and 7 furlongs. But Erod Ortiz Jr. I think if Erod Ortiz Jr. I think that jumping over to Catholic Boy I think is correct. For Erod to do that, I just don't think Promises Fulfilled, even though he is 3-1 on the morning line, comes home the winner. But there you go. Now that I said that, he probably will. So I will take the 6 Catholic Boy with the 1 Strike Power to follow behind. Gentlemen, any more comments on the Florida Derby?
Well, I think you made a good point about Irad. I mean, it's interesting that he would jump off a horse who won Fountain of Youth to jump on a Catholic Boy. So I think that's a very good angle there. And another reason why Catholic Boy looks like to me, either first or second in this race.
Gotcha. Very good. Ryan, anything more to add, my friend?
No, I don't think so. I think we're all set here. I think we all like Catholic Boy, and we all like Audible a little bit. So, I mean, it's funny because in these two races, you have one huge favorite in Gold Town that I absolutely love, and I have no problem betting. And then you have Audible, who's probably one of the better 3-year-olds in the country right now, and I don't even really want to bet on him. But I mean, I think he's got a real good chance of winning the race. So, two different races, two different strategies. I like the favorite in the UAE Derby, and I don't really want to bet too much on Audible in this race. So it's kind of weird.
Gotcha. Well, we'll see how it all plays out on Saturday. Again, the UAE Derby at 9:30 in the morning on Saturday Eastern Time, and then post time for the Florida Derby around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for that. And coming up next weekend, the boys and I, we're going to have our work cut out for us on our next show. 3 prep races on the schedule, including the Wood Memorial from Aqueduct, the Bluegrass from Keeneland, and the Santa Anita Derby from Santa Anita Park, all coming up next time we do our show. Gentlemen, any last wishes or any last things to say? Any final words?
Yeah, I will be, broadcasting or whatever it's called that we're doing here, recording. We'll be recording from Lexington, Kentucky, from Keeneland, and hopefully we will be in a race on Friday, which is opening day at Keeneland, and then I'll stick around and see the Bluegrass with my own 2 eyes before driving back up here.
Gotcha. Please keep us updated on Resonate. Please definitely do that.
Right.
Dana?
I'll be watching from my computer.
Like a good horse handicapper that you are. Well, don't forget to tune into other shows and podcasts here on sportsradiodetroit.com, including Fanarchy, The Set Piece, Mitten Sports Talk, The Laugh Track, Spinning the Wheels, Wings, Pistons, Lions, and Tigers SRD, and SRD Ringside. Also, don't forget to check back for more of the Whip and Neigh podcast as the Triple Crown season progresses. Thank you very much for listening. Reminder, I am one of your show hosts, Pete Spivak. You can find me on Detroit's 1130 WDFN The Fan, and find me on Twitter at Son of USFL Dad. Ryan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at rdickey249, and also they can find me at 5minutes2post.com.
Dana?
On Twitter at dgaruder.
You got it, my friends. And don't forget what Stan Laurel says, you can lead a horse to water, but a pencil must be led. Good luck, and hail and farewell.
This has been an SRD production.